This is the story of a remarkable new discovery that takes us to the heart of Henry VIII's court. It involves the king himself, it involves Catherine of Aragon, Anne Boleyn, and the man who was at the heart of power for much of the 1530s, Thomas Cromwell.
And that's why I've come back to Hever Castle for an important announcement that has caused much excitement among historians of the Tudor court.
Have a look at this picture. This portrait is key to understanding this story. This picture of Cromwell was painted by Hans Holbein, the famous artist. Now, Cromwell had been a servant to Cardinal Thomas Wolsey. And when Wolsey fell from power because he was unable to secure the annulment of Henry's marriage to Catherine of Aragon, Cromwell continued to rise. And he did so on the basis of his hard work and his intelligence and what we can think of as a certain degree of ruthlessness. Because of these things, he would become one of Henry's closest confidants, one of his most trusted servants. He helped secure the submission of the clergy to Henry VIII's will in 1531. They were charged with treason for their allegiance to the Pope, and Henry let them off when they paid him £100,000. And in 1532, he was made a Privy Councillor and Master of the Jewel House. And it's a really intriguing picture. Cromwell isn't looking at Holbein, therefore not looking at us, and it's full of objects. There's a rug over here, there's a green cloth here, a quill, some scissors, a little purse, some letters, and this book. And before now, we haven't had a clue what this book was.
Also vital to this story is one of Hever Castle's most precious possessions, a printed prayer book, a book of hours that belonged to Anne Boleyn. I've looked at it before for History Hit, both on its own, especially where Anne Boleyn herself signed it.
That is amazing, isn't it? Her signature.
It's probably the closest you can feel to her when you're looking at her writing in her book.
And earlier this year, I came again to Hever when Anne's book was displayed alongside a very similar copy that was once owned by her rival, Queen Catherine of Aragon. These printed books of hours set the Hever curators thinking. They knew there was another copy that was held in the Wren Library at Trinity College, Cambridge, and they wanted to compare them. The book had been in the care of Trinity since it was given to the college in 1660. When Hever's curators went to Cambridge to see the book for the first time, they recognised something extraordinary. They spotted something that no one else had noticed before. A remarkable similarity between the book in the library at Trinity and the one in Holbein's portrait of Cromwell. It was curator Alison Palmer who made the connection.
Alison, you are the sharp-eyed person who made this discovery. It's amazing. Tell me how you did it.
So I went to Cambridge with my colleagues Kate and Owen to look at this beautiful book of hours. And then the next day I saw this portrait of Thomas Cromwell and just thought, I saw that book yesterday.
And what gave away that it was the same book? How did you know? What was it that clicked in your mind?
So, I mean, I think it's the placement of the jewels, the clasp, that central boss.
It's an amazing moment of serendipity that you had the visit, then you saw the portrait, so that they were close enough in time for you to connect it in your mind. Because no one has done this before in the last 400 years.
Well, yeah, exactly. I think it literally is because I saw the book one day and then the painting the next.
Following Alison's initial revelation, Hever's curators worked with Trinity on months of meticulous detective work to establish that the book in the painting and the book in the Wren library really are one and the same. Now assistant curators Dr Owen Emerson and Kate McCaffrey have returned to Cambridge to arrange for the Trinity College copy of the Book of Hours to travel to Hever for a special exhibition. First, they're taking another look at it with Wren librarian Dr Nicholas Bell.
Here's the book.
Brilliant. Oh, it's so special to see it again.
Oh, it is lovely to see it again.
So I'll just undo that clasp.
Brilliant. These gorgeous garnet clasps as well, which we have also inset into both of the covers, the front and the back there, which make it really special. And it's the binding that we're most interested in, I suppose, isn't it, with this one? This was
Yes.
the clue. This was the main clue to provenance. And it is that gorgeous, used to be dark blue velvet, is that right?
Or possibly black.
Or
It's,
black,
it's really
yes.
difficult to tell. The cloth, I mean, it's just silk now, but we think it must have been velvet, and the pile of the velvet has worn off over the years.
We can still see some of the gilt
Yes,
on the edges here.
especially on the edges, it's true.
Yeah.
We did some tests on this recently in the metallurgy department in the university by shining lasers into the jewels using Raman spectroscopy to identify the chemical structure. And from that we know that in fact they're not jaspers, they're also not jacinths, but they're garnets. They're called grossular garnets.
It is a case of do judge a book by its cover, isn't it, in this case, because it's these covers that have provided our best clue that this, in fact, is Cromwell's book, or is the book in Cromwell's Portrait. And there we are. And there's the hard-won insignia.
So there is a title that tells you the name of the printer, Hardwin, who was working in Paris, and the address of his workshop. And I think we know that these books were not only printed there, but also illuminated. It was a sort of combined printer's workshop and scriptorium, so that you could order a grandly illuminated Book of Hours from one shop.
Beneath Germain Ardouin's insignia, the text records that the book was printed by Ardouin's workshop. He was the Parisian printer who made all the copies of this Book of Hours, including Anne Boleyn's and Catherine of Aragon's. And there is clear evidence of when the books were printed.
And we know the date, roughly, from the next page, where there's an almanac listing the date of Easter from 1528 onwards. It enables you to use the book to find the appropriate prayers to say on a particular day. But so the fact that this starts in 1528 might suggest, I mean, it could mean that the book was printed in 1528 or possibly in 1527.
Yes, so it's that information that you've just pointed out which actually enables us to link this book to other copies of the same printing, and we've had two of those just on display at Hever. We obviously have Anne Boleyn's copy of this book and Catherine of Aragon's copy.
But when did this copy of the book get its ornate gilded binding? And who did it? There are more clues.
This one is really unusual in that it still has the appearance of it had in,
Yes.
well, at least in 1529.
Yes.
And we know that date, not so much from the list of dates of Easter, but from the hallmark that you can see on the inside of the silver edge to the book. There are two hallmarks here, or stamps, one with the letter A and one with the letter N. The identity of the maker, of the goldsmith responsible for this, and also the year in which he made it.
So the goldsmith was Pierre Mongeau, who was the royal goldsmith for King Francis I. He trained in Blois, which of course is intimately connected with a very young Anne Boleyn, who was serving at Queen Claude's court there often. And he moved to Paris in 1528, where he set up a workshop and worked for amazing and illustrious people such as King Francis, but also Henry VIII.
And what's brilliant about this book is that this seems to be the only surviving work that Mongeau completed for a book that we still have today.
We know the date of December 1529 to 1530 from the letter A. A new letter was made each year, changing it in early December. There's still something confusing though, because the Anne Boleyn copy, we can be pretty certain that she had already received before this date.
Yes.
Was it in 1527 or could it have been early 1528?
Yes, it must have been by the end of 1529 that she wrote her inscription, because she signs it Boleyn.
Yes.
And after that point she would have signed it Rochford when her father was elevated to the earldom of Wiltshire. So she must have had hers by the time this is bound, really, which is quite interesting.
Close inspection raises some interesting questions about how the book has been repaired over the years.
In fact, I think you may have noticed that the jewel on the front is rectangular, the jewel on the back is octagonal.
Yes.
I think what's happened there, in Holbein's portrait, it's very clear that the two clasps both have an octagonal jewel, and that the top one is rectangular like this. I think that when this book was repaired, probably in the mid-18th century, we think, the second clasp, which maybe was already damaged, this clasp has been repaired at a later date. I think that the jewel from the clasp has been taken off and
repurposed,
moved onto the back.
So we now know the book was printed by Germain Ardouin in Paris in 1527 or 1528, that Anne Boleyn had her Hever Castle copy before late 1529, and the gilded hallmark shows us that the copy in Trinity College was bound in Paris by Pierre Mongeau in between December 1529 and December 1530. If this really is Cromwell's prayer book from the painting by Holbein, then we're looking at something exceptionally interesting. The late 1520s and early 1530s are the period of what is known as the King's Great Matter, when Henry VIII, desperate for a male heir, was trying to annul his marriage to Catherine of Aragon and marry his new love, Anne Boleyn. And helping to make this all happen was his new minister, Thomas Cromwell. But there are still major questions to answer. For starters, if this book is the one in the portrait of Cromwell, how did it get to Trinity? And can that provenance help us to confirm whether it really is Cromwell's book?
Thanks for watching this video on the History Hit YouTube channel. You can subscribe right here to make sure you don't miss any of our great films that are coming out. Or if you are a true history fan, check out our special dedicated history channel, historyhit.tv. You're going to love it.